Hi, good morning, everyone. So, welcome to my channel. I am preparing a video lecture series regarding our subject Introduction to Agriculture Policy and Development in the Philippines. In this video, let's take a look about the overview of the agricultural sector in the Philippines. So, you may like, follow us, and share for more updates and more videos related to agribusiness. So first, let's take a look about the definition of agriculture policy and development. Agriculture policy and development in the Philippines refer to the government's strategies, its plans, and programs aimed at promoting the growth, sustainability, and modernization of the agricultural sector in the country. So these policies are designed to address various challenges such as low productivity, rural poverty, environmental sustainability, and food security. Development initiatives focus on improving agricultural practices, supporting our farmers, enhancing the rural infrastructure, and ensuring the overall well being of the agricultural community. So the following slides are some of the important details on Philippine agriculture development and policy as of my additional research. First is the Philippine Development Plan. The Philippine government typically outlines its strategies for agriculture within the broader context of the Philippine Development Plan. So this plan sets the direction for the country's economic and social development, including specific goals and targets for the agriculture sector. Then, the Department of Agriculture. The Department of Agriculture is the primary government agency responsible for the formulation and implementation of agriculture policies and programs. It plays a crucial role in coordinating efforts to boost agricultural productivity, improve farm incomes, and ensure food security. And then in our agri modernization program, so the government has often implemented a series of programs to modernize our agriculture, introducing new technologies and practices to enhance the productivity. So this includes initiatives like our mechanization, irrigation, and the use of modern farm techniques. Then our rural infrastructure development. Investments in rural infrastructure such as roads, irrigation system, and the post-harvest facilities are essential components of agriculture development. This will improve our infrastructure that helps reduce post-harvest losses. And at the same time, it will connect our farmers to market and accessibility and enhance the overall efficiency. Then our land reform. The land reform policies are crucial for promoting a what we call equitable distribution of land and at the same time supporting our smallholder farmers. The Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, or what we call CARP, has been significant land reform initiative in the Philippines. And then the climate change adaptation. So if you can notice, the pattern of our weather is now unpredictable because of the climate change. Given the vulnerability of our agriculture to climate change, our policy often include measures to promote climate smart agriculture So we need to adjust to the current condition. This involves strategies to help farmers adapt to changing climatic conditions and mitigate the impact of climate change of agricultural productivity. And then there is what we call a public private partnership. So the PPP is a collaboration between the government and the private sector, which encourage to attract investment and promote agribusiness and create value chains that benefit both our farmers and our consumers. So here in my illustration, if you can see, the public-private partnership are composed of public came into a collaboration with a private organization. This is to undertake a public work projects commonly and the risk and responsibilities by each of them. Okay, so here's my references to some of my presentation. So as an agriculture student, you must have to understand that certain policies and programs may have evolved or changed. I suggest involving official announcements, government publications, and reliable sources about Philippine agriculture to ensure you have the most up-to-date to accurate information. Then let's proceed to the importance of agriculture in the Philippines. So agriculture holds a significant importance in the Philippines due to its multi faceted contribution to the economy, to our food security, employment, and poverty alleviation, and rural development. So here are key points highlighting the importance of agriculture in the Philippines, supported by references. First is its economic contribution. Agriculture is a major contributor to the Philippine economy, providing a substantial share of the country's gross domestic product. And as of my last knowledge update in January 22, agriculture accounted for a significant portion of the GDP, supporting millions of livelihoods. Next, employment generation. The agriculture sector is a crucial source of employment, particularly in rural areas. It provides livelihood for a large percentage of the population. This including our farmers, our farm workers, and those engaged in agribusiness. Next is our rural development. Agriculture is closely linked to rural development as many farming communities are situated in our rural areas. Government initiatives aim to develop rural infrastructure, improve access to education and healthcare to enhance the overall quality of life in these areas. And then livelihood diversification. Agriculture provides opportunities for livelihood diversification that allows rural communities to engage in various agricultural activities such as crop farming, livestock raising, and fisheries. The diversification can enhance resilience to economic shock. And then our environmental stewardship. So the sustainability of our agricultural practices are crucial for our environmental conservation. Actually, in my own observation, some of our farmers are still in the old practices like kaingin, and these old practices it doesn't promote sustainability, but rather a degradation. It degrades our environment. That has a long-term implication. So the policies and programs should promote practices that aim to reduce the environmental impact of agriculture and at the same time conserve our biodiversity and promote climate smart farming. Okay, here's the following references. So next, let's proceed to the historical perspective so that we can proceed to, to have a view of what will be in the future. First, evolution of agriculture in the Philippines. So if you can see in the illustration in my photo, this is the result of what we call kaingin, and it is really damaging the environment. So the evolution of agriculture in the Philippines has been complex and multifaceted process. It's shaped by historical, social, and economic and environmental factors. So the following slides are some of the overview of key stages in the evolution of agriculture in the Philippines. Okay, so it started in pre-colonial period, so that is way back 16th century. So before the arrival of the Spanish colonizers. So our agriculture in the Philippines was primarily what we call subsistence based. So kung ano lang yung ano no, yung enough for what you need for your family. Indigenous farming methods included Sweden or slash and burn agriculture. Terrace farming in the mountainous regions, our famous rice terraces, and the cultivation of various crops like our rice, our corn, and the root crops. And then the Spanish came, and that is way back 1565 to 1898. That is the time of the Spanish colonial period. So the Spanish colonial period introduced new crops and farming techniques to the Philippines. So this includes the cultivation of tobacco, sugar, and various cash crops for export. So the encomienda system and later the hacienda system shaped the land ownership pattern and agricultural practices during this era. Then, this is the time where the American colonial period, in the year of 1898 to 1946. So, what the Americans did is first, they rule growth changes and land tenure in our land tenure system. And followed by that is the implementation of the homestead system and the introduction of cash crops such as abaca, used for hemp and coconut. So the Bureau of Agriculture was established to promote modern farming practices and provide agricultural education during this time. And during the World War II, that is a time of the Japanese occupation. The Japanese occupation during World War II disrupted our traditional farming practices, leading to focus on survival and subsistence farming. And after the war, the post-war reconstruction effort included the rehabilitation of agricultural infrastructure that was being damaged by the war and the promotion of the diversified crops, since it's that is a time that hunger is very prominent. And then there is a era is what that is what we call post-independence period. So during this time, way back 1946 until present, the land reform programs aimed at addressing issues of land concentration and promoting what we call equitable distribution have been implemented. And then, followed by that, the Green Revolution in the 1960s introduced high yielding crop varieties, and then the fertilizers and pesticides are also introduced, transforming our agricultural practices. And then the Philippines has become a major exporter of products such as rice, coconut, and fruits. It is important to note that these references provide general information on Philippine history and agriculture, and more specific sources may be available for in-depth research on particular aspect of the evolution of our agriculture in the Philippines. Then let's take a look about the key agricultural practices in those different eras. So in pre-colonial era, a kaingin system, even until now, is being practiced. The pre-colonial Filipinos practiced what we call Sweden or slash and burn agriculture. They cleared small patches of land, burned the vegetation, and cultivated crops for a limited period before moving to another area. The rice terraces in some mountainous region, pre-colonial Filipinos constructed intricate rice terraces, and even now it was been subject for a agritourism, such as the Banawi rice terraces, to cultivate rice in the steep terrain. So during the Spanish colonial era, our agricultural practices are started in what we call encomienda system. So the Spanish, they introduced the encomienda system where the Spanish conquistadors were granted the right to extract forced labor from our indigenous communities in exchange for protection. This system affected agricultural practices as locals were forced to work as on Spanish-owned estates. Hacienda system, a large-scale agricultural estates known as hacienda, emerged during the era and primarily producing a cash crops like sugar and tobacco. So in our American colonial era, here's our agricultural practices. They introduced the cash crops. So it is the Americans who introduced the corn, the abaca, and coconut to our agricultural landscape. And they started the land survey and titling. So the American colonial government initiated the land surveying and titling systems, providing a framework for private land ownership. And then the Japanese occupation. So there is a what we call occupation policies that the Japanese implemented. So the Japanese occupation disrupted our agricultural practices with forced labor and harsh policies affecting both our farmers and our landowners. So during the 1946 and 1960s, this was the post-World War era. The land reform initiatives, um, post-independence governments attempted various land reforms program to address the land distribution issues such as the Agricultural Land Reform Code of 1963. And then in the one of the agricultural practices is the green revolution technologies. The introduction of a what we call high yielding crop varieties was started, and they start using chemical fertilizers and pesticides marked the beginning of what we call the green revolution that boosting our agricultural productivity, but at the same time there's a consequences on our environmental sustainability. And in our late 20th century and in our present time, our agricultural practices are greatly evolved, and even in our aquaculture development, where the Philippines has become a major player in aquaculture, particularly in shrimp and fish farming. And also, our organic farming practices are now being promoted. So, in recent years, there has been a growing interest in organic farming as a sustainable and environmentally friendly approach. And then the mechanization. So the adoption of modern farming, machinery, and technology has increased efficiency in some agricultural sectors. So, students, It's important to note that these eras overlap, and the evolution of agricultural practices in the Philippines is a complex interplay of our historical, economic, and social factors. Additionally, contemporary agricultural practices continue to adapt to global trends and challenges. Then let's proceed to the impact of historical events on agriculture. What is the impact of those events? So our Philippine agriculture has been significantly influenced by various historical events that have shaped the country's economic, our social, and political landscape. So in the Spanish colonial period, their impact first is the introduction of crops. Our Spanish colonization introduced various crops to the Philippines, um, including our maize, our tobacco, and various fruits. The cultivation of these crops had a lasting impact on the agricultural landscape that even now are being practiced. The encomienda system, which granted Spanish colonizers control over indigenous labor and resources, disrupted traditional farming practices and led to the exploitation of local farmers. And then in our American colonial period, their impact to our Philippine agriculture includes a land ownership patterns. The implementation of Public Land Act in 1902 led to the establishment of large-scale land ownership patterns, favoring wealthy individuals and corporations. This contributed to the concentration of land in the hands of a few, affecting land distribution and productivity. So the cash crop production, the Americans, they are the one who encourage the cultivation of what we call cash crops, such as sugar, tobacco, for export. And this focus on export-oriented agriculture influence the types of crops grown and shape the agricultural economy. So in Japanese occupation, the impact is more on disruption of our agricultural activities, since many of our farmers were forced to contribute to the war effort. This period resulted in food shortage and economic difficulties for our rural communities. So if you can see in the photos, that is how the war impact caused a tremendous hunger to the people. And the post World War II reconstruction is the effort that starts in land reform initiatives to address land distribution issues through reform program. However, progress was slow, and many large land holdings remained intact. And also during this time, the introduction of high-yielding crop varieties, improved irrigation, and the use of chemical fertilizers, a mark with the Green Revolution in the 1960s. This had a significant impact on increasing agricultural productivity, but also led to environmental concerns and social disparities. And the martial law period that started in 1972 until 1981. Our former president, Ferdinand Marcos Sr., the declaration of the martial law has repercussions on land rights and agrarian reform, and large-scale agricultural enterprises were favored, and the control of resources was further concentrated. In post-Marcos era in 1986 onwards, agrarian reform, the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, was implemented in 1988 to address the land distribution issues and promote social justice. However, its effectiveness has been subject to debate, and challenges remain in achieving equitable land distribution. And during this time, globalization and trade liberalization started. The Philippines' integration in the global economy has influenced agricultural policies with a focus on export oriented crops. This has both positive and negative implication to our farmers, depending on their ability to compete in the global market. Plus, the natural disasters and climate change. So, the typhoons and natural calamities that the Philippines is prone to this calamity. Uh, these events pose challenge to food security and economic stability for our farming communities. And changing weather patterns and environmental conditions impact crop yields, our water availability, and our overall agricultural productivity. Adaptation strategies are crucial for the resilience of our agricultural sector. So, students, understanding the historical context is essential for policymakers and stakeholders in addressing current challenges and promoting the sustainable development in Philippine agriculture. So let's take a look about the roles of our smallholder farmers. So according to what I've read, smallholder farmers are essential to the Philippine agricultural industry. The smallholder farmers are sometimes characterized as farm owners or operators of small scale operations who frequently with restricted resources and land. One can comprehend their significance in the Philippine agriculture for several perspectives. First, a food security. Our smallholder farmers contribute significantly to food security by producing a what we call substantial portion of the country's food supply. They are involved in the cultivation of staple crops such as our rice, our corn, and vegetables, and fruits, which are essential component of the Filipino diet. And then livelihood and income generation. Our smallholder farmers is a primary source of livelihood for a large portion of the rural population in the Philippines. And by engaging in agriculture, smallholders generate income for their families, support local economies, and contribute to poverty reduction. And one of their role is biodiversity conservation. Many smallholder farmers in the Philippines practice traditional and diverse farming system. These systems often include agroforestry, mixed cropping, and intercropping, contributing to biodiversity conservation and sustainability. And then our rural development. Smallholder farmers is closely linked to rural development as it creates employment practices, opportunities, and stimulates economic activities in rural areas. The development of rural communities, in turn, contributes to overall national development. And as one of the role is a cultural heritage. Smallholder farming often involves the preservation of our traditional agricultural practices and knowledge. So this is not only contributes to cultural heritage but also helps in maintaining our agricultural biodiversity and at the same time resilience and adaptation. Smallholder farmers are typically more resilient to local environmental conditions and are often able to adapt to changing circumstances. Their diverse and localized knowledge can be valuable in addressing challenges such as climate change and volatile market conditions. So here is the following references in my presentation. Then let's take a look about the challenges faced by the agricultural sector. So the agricultural sector in the Philippines face various challenges that impact its productivity and sustainability. So first is the land degradation, a soil erosion, deforestation, and improper land use contribute to land degradation in the country. This leads to reduced soil, fertility, and loss of arable land and decreased agricultural productivity. And then our outdated farming practices. Many farmers in the Philippines still use traditional and outdated farming methods, which result in lower yields and inefficient resources utilization. Lack of access to modern farming techniques and technology hinders progress in this sector. And then the limited access to credit. As part of the challenges faced by our agricultural sector, the small scale farmers often face challenges in accessing the credit for purchasing a input that they need, like for example, the seeds, fertilizers, and equipment that are vital to their operation. Limited financial resources hinder their ability to invest in modern farming practices and technologies. And then the rural poverty. Agriculture is a significant source of livelihood for many Filipinos, especially in our rural areas. However, the sector often experiences high level of poverty due to factors such as low farm income, lack of infrastructure, and limited market access. And also the inadequate infrastructure. Although we can see that there are a lot of initiatives of our government to continuously uh, address those needs, but the insufficient rural infrastructure and including our roads, irrigation systems, and post-harvest facilities still possess a challenge to to the efficient transportation and storage of our agricultural products. And this can result in post-harvest losses and reduced income for our farmers. And also our market access and price fluctuation. Farmers may face difficulties in accessing market, and they often contend with price fluctuation for their produce. Lack of information and market linkage can lead to unfair pricing and lower incomes for our farmers. And then pest and disease outbreaks. Insect pests, plant diseases, and other agricultural pests can devastate crops, leading to significant losses for our farmers. And limited access to effective pest control measures and extension services exacerbates this issue. And then the lack of agribusiness opportunities. The agricultural sector in the Philippines often lack value added processing and agribusiness opportunities. This limits the potential for farmers to increase their income through the processing and marketing of agricultural products. And the policy and regulatory challenges. So, this is one of the challenges that also our agricultural sector are facing. Inconsistent policies, unclear land tenure arrangements, and inadequate regulatory frameworks can hinder agricultural development. Farmers need stable and supportive policies to plan and invest effectively in their operations. So, addressing these challenges requires a what we call holistic approach involving government policies, our private sector, and then at the same time, technology adoption and community engagement to ensure sustainable and inclusive agricultural development in the Philippines. So, our next topic is in the government policies and programs. So, we will continue our next video lecture.